Okay, so you might be part of that 40 to 50% of men who pop Cialis, Viagra, or any of those generic PDE5 inhibitors for erectile dysfunction and see absolutely zero results. Or maybe it worked like a charm at first, but here's what nobody warns you about for most guys. After taking it consistently for more than 2 years, you actually need to bump up the dose just to feel the same effect. And a higher dose means worse side effects, and eventually the whole thing just stops doing anything at all. So there has to be a plan B out there, right? One that doesn't involve jabbing yourself in the member every single time you want to perform? And honestly, there is a plan B. Actually, there are several of them, but it seems like nobody wants to have an honest conversation about all your options. And Big Pharma's idea of a plan B is basically just smashing Viagra and Cialis together into one pill and telling you to keep popping it. And I really wish I were making that up, but I'm not. You've seen the commercials, you might have even ordered some, but there is always a smarter, healthier path than the pharmaceutical treadmill. Now, usually on this channel, we talk about fixing erectile dysfunction from the ground up, getting to the root cause and addressing it long term. But today, we're doing something different. Today, we're talking about using a specific peptide to tackle ED head-on. A peptide kind of like how Ozempic and Wegovy changed the weight loss game. Well, imagine something like that, but for your manhood, transforming things from a minnow into a monster. I'm going to break down the PT141 peptide, this little-known Cialis alternative that you can use instead of those generic PDE5 inhibitors. And it has men so solid, so dependable, that guys in the biohacking world are literally calling it the werewolf stack, because it brings out the beast. It can help you get completely firm and stay that way for hours, just by taking it a little while before you need to perform. So let's dive in. Right into it. PT141, also known as bremelanotide, say it with me, bremelanotide, and this compound has been researched as far back as the 1990s. PT141 was studied on men who had what doctors call psychogenic erectile dysfunction, which basically means the plumbing works fine, but the brain is getting in the way. And researchers were exploring whether it could potentially replace Viagra entirely. On top of that, they tested it as a nasal spray. Just a couple sniffs and you're stiff. And they actually ran proper double-blind placebo-controlled trials where they combined PT141 with Viagra on men who couldn't get results from Viagra alone. And guess what? It actually worked. So let's break down PT141. Side effects, PT141 dosing, and exactly where you can get your hands on this stuff. So the real question becomes, if PT141 works this well as an injection and as a nasal spray, why on earth isn't everyone talking about it? Why isn't it prescribed everywhere? Why hasn't your doctor mentioned it this well? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You really cannot patent a naturally occurring substance like a peptide. There's simply no fortune in it for the pharmaceutical giants. And since there are multiple ways to boost your firmness, I genuinely want you to be aware of every single one so you can make the smartest decision for your body. Now, before we go any further, if you haven't already, make sure you grab my free resource that's pinned right below at the top of the comment section. It's going to show you exactly how to eat and snack specifically for stronger erections. Food for your firmness. So tap that link, drop your email in, and I'll send you a private message with everything you need. Now, to really understand what a complete game changer PT141 or bremelanotide truly is, let's first do a quick refresher on how generic Viagra and Cialis actually function in your body. PDE5 inhibitors work through a specific mechanism where they block an enzyme called PDE5, and by shutting that enzyme down, it allows the nitric oxide gas that your blood vessels naturally produce to stick around longer. And that causes the blood vessels to relax and widen so blood can rush in and an erection can form and hold. Now, before I get deeper into this, I really want you to put your headphones in so you can hear every detail clearly, because I always want you to know that you have choices. And on this channel, we dig into the advantages and disadvantages of every single option. And while you're reaching for those headphones, hit that subscribe button so you genuinely won't miss any of these updates on the newest breakthroughs in men's health. Now, a far less talked about alternative to Cialis and Viagra is the PT-141 peptide. Maybe you got solid results with the traditional pills, and maybe you got nothing. But with this option, you potentially deal with significantly fewer side effects. So what actually happens to this chain of biological events when your prescription for generic Viagra or Cialis just stops delivering results well? Here it is. PT-141 is actually not some brand new discovery. I found published research dating all the way back to the late 1990s and early 2000s, examining PT-141 specifically as an alternative for men who couldn't tolerate the side effects of traditional pills, or who fell into that 30 to 50% of men where those medications simply never worked at all. So, bremelanotide. First, a little background. It's a peptide. And peptides are simply chains of amino acids, nothing exotic or complicated. You're already very familiar with amino acids. Creatine is an amino acid, and peptides are essentially smaller versions of proteins. They're like the building blocks that proteins use, and they help regulate certain body functions, and they exist naturally inside your body. And the synthetic peptides that scientists create are designed to mimic the ones your body already makes. And peptides have become incredibly popular, both in the media and in medical practice, because of their minimal side effects and because they don't seem to drastically alter what the body was naturally designed to do. They almost work to restore balance to systems that have gotten out of sync. And popular peptides you've definitely heard of include Wegovy and Ozempic. Yeah, those massive weight loss breakthroughs, those are peptides. But what makes peptides especially interesting is that in many cases, researchers are seeing them actually resolve conditions at the source, which is genuinely new territory for Western medicine. And Big Pharma hasn't traditionally invested heavily in peptides because isolated proteins and naturally occurring peptides are difficult to patent, which means generating billions from peptide therapies is nearly impossible. But these therapies can address a wide range of health concerns because of their ability to target and influence very specific pathways and functions within the body, keeping everything running the way nature intended. So, how exactly does the PT-141 peptide work as an erectile dysfunction treatment? Well, PT-141 is a lab-created version of a hormone that controls sexual function directly at the brain level. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Whereas Viagra and Cialis work down at the penis and blood vessel level, which is exactly why those medications cause so many miserable side effects, like racing heart or what doctors call tachycardia, vision disturbances, acid reflux, stuffy congested nose, hot flashes, and the list goes on, because of how those drugs mess with your vascular system. Now, PT-141 is a synthetic version of something called melanocyte-stimulating hormone, and in clinical trials, it's been shown to be erectogenic, meaning it actively helps generate an erection in male tissue. And in women, it stimulates their clitoral erectile tissue, so benefits for both partners. And what makes it truly revolutionary is that it can help produce an erection whether there has been any physical stimulation happening or not. So why do these erectile dysfunction medications eventually stop working anyway? Why do these prescriptions just give up on you? Well, think back to the very first time you ever swallowed Cialis or Viagra. It probably went one of two directions. Either it felt like absolute magic, and then the side effects hit you like a truck, or it barely did anything at all. And here's why. If you've used up your body's stored supply of nitric oxide, or your body struggles to manufacture enough of it, if there's too much fibrosis or thickened scar tissue inside the penile structure, which naturally accumulates over time, as that erectile tissue stops receiving the same blood flow and nourishment it enjoyed in your 20s. If the blood vessels themselves are too damaged or narrowed, if your hormones are out of balance or disrupted, and if there's nerve damage, either from an injury or from chronic conditions like diabetes or high blood pressure, and if nerve signaling has been weakened or impaired, or if there's something happening upstairs, a psychological barrier blocking the signal, these medications may never produce results for you ever. So enter PT-141. And as a matter of fact, Robert, a member of our community, reached out to me just recently and said, Doctor, I've been using PT-141 with fantastic results. It keeps me solid for 12 hours straight, and I haven't experienced any issues. 4 milligrams is my sweet spot. Now, Robert follows our complete nutrition protocol and sticks to the dietary recommendations I provide. And speaking of which, make sure you download the free resource I have pinned below on exactly how to eat for maximum firmness. Because what you put in your body directly affects what happens below the belt. So that link is pinned right there in the comments. Now, when Viagra stops delivering, PT-141 can be used either as a replacement or as an addition. And taking it together with Cialis is what the biohacking community calls stacking. And men in this space have nicknamed it the werewolf stack because it unleashes something primal, and PT-141 actually provides sexual benefits for both men and women. It's been shown to increase sexual desire in both genders, and in women specifically, it's been demonstrated to boost genital arousal, which is particularly crucial for women approaching perimenopause, because as menopause gets closer, the body starts shutting certain systems down, and PT-141 has been clinically proven to facilitate erections. And honestly, something truly remarkable about it is that it can help generate an erection even without any physical activity leading up to it. Now, there are 2 methods for taking PT-141. You can breathe it in as a nasal spray, or you can use a tiny needle to inject it into the fatty tissue of your abdomen. And studies have demonstrated success with both approaches. So you can experiment with the nasal spray, or you can inject anywhere from 1 to 5 milligrams right into the belly. Most men actually tend to prefer the injection method, and in fact, early clinical studies showed that PT-141 used subcutaneously in men with moderate to severe erectile dysfunction who could not achieve an erection with generic Viagra. These men actually experienced significant erections compared to the placebo group. Now, the most exciting part about using the PT-141 peptide is that in a research article published in the Journal of Urology back in 2007, titled Salvage of Sildenafil Failures with Bremelanotide, a double-blind placebo-controlled study, they found that this peptide helped men who had the most severe forms of erectile dysfunction, the ones with the worst outlook, the men who had seriously damaged tissue and compromised blood vessels feeding the erectile structures. So let's talk honestly about some of the reported side effects of using PT-141, because nothing in this world is completely perfect, right? So among the study participants, the primary complaint was nausea, along with some flushing and sweating, and a handful of men reported lower back discomfort and a strange taste in the mouth. Well, naturally, if you spray anything up your nose, it's going to leave a weird flavor. The most frequent complaint I personally hear from men is nausea that sticks around for roughly an hour and then fades completely. So there are genuinely so many paths to enhancing firmness. You really just need to figure out which approach is safest for your specific situation and which one delivers the best results for you. So share your stories with us. Have you tried PT-141 before? And if you have, where did you source it? We share openly here. This is not a community that hoards information. I want you to know about every possible advantage. And if you haven't already, make sure you download my free resource pinned below at the top of the comments and discover exactly how to eat and snack for peak performance. All you need to do is enter your email and I'll send you a completely private message. All my communications will be discreet with the direct link. Now, PT-141 can be a bit of an investment. I'm going to be straight with you. A 10 milligram vial typically costs around $50, and for men dealing with erectile dysfunction, the effective dose is about 4 milligrams. For guys who simply want to take their existing firmness to the next level, it's closer to 1 milligram, and the nasal spray version starts at roughly $250. But here's some good news. You can actually split the cost with your partner because it works for them too. Whether your partner is female or male, and the FDA has not given approval for this, specifically for treating erectile dysfunction or low desire. And of course, I have to be transparent about this. This is absolutely something you should pursue alongside your healthcare provider. Your doctor can write a prescription for PT-141, and you can fill it at a local compounding pharmacy or an online compounding pharmacy. Or you're the kind of person who likes to handle things yourself. You can find a trustworthy research pharmacy online where you can obtain PT 141 without a prescription, reconstitute it on your own. And listen, the FDA is actively working to restrict access to these compounds, and members of the anti-aging and biohacking communities have discovered workarounds, and the research supply route is one of those methods. So make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of this cutting-edge men's health information. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, and I'll see you in the next one.